Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong.
Jesus, or not.
So our scripture this morning is going to come from the prophet Isaiah. But before we get there, will you pray with me? Let's pray. Almighty God, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of all of our hearts here be faithful and pleasing to you, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So we got a Super Bowl going on today. And what's always exciting is to see all the hard work and everything that's been building up to the Super Bowl. And we know that tonight, at some point in the game, there's going to be people crying. Some of us are crying because we're Cowboys fans and we're not there. Some of us are going to be crying because our team wins, and some might cry because their team loses. And you know, there's always the time where the winning team goes up on the podium and they thank it, you know, and they're so excited and all that kind of stuff. And my favorite part is a kind of tradition that's been asked of, well, you know, now that you won the Super Bowl, what are you going to do? And what is the usual response?
Go to
Disney World, right? That's got to be the epitome of things, right? So it's always exciting to watch that. But then I think, what happens after they get back from Disney World? You know, it's exactly what they end up doing is they celebrate a little bit longer, but eventually they're like, all right, time to get back to work again. You know, they have to get back to work, and they have to start preparing for the next year. And it seems like that's kind of a theme of our lives, is it not? That we're always in pursuit of one goal after the next. But what happens when we don't reach our goals, or even worse, what happens when we don't know what to do next? I'm a big basketball fan, so I'm going to enjoy watching the Super Bowl tonight, but I'm a big basketball fan. I'm a diehard Spurs fan. I've always been, but something that I was watching recently, because I was listening to sports radio, and Steve Kerr, the current coach of probably the best team in the NBA right now, the Golden State Warriors, was speaking about his team. And Steve Kerr was talking, and he was talking about the topic of maintaining dominance. Steve Kerr was asked, well, how come the Warriors are so dominant? What makes them such a great team? And Steve Kerr paused for a second. He goes, you know what? We could talk about my team, but there's other teams that have demonstrated what real dominance means. And Steve Kerr actually mentions the New England Patriots and the San Antonio Spurs. And he starts talking about it. You know, it's so difficult. It's difficult to win a championship, but it's even more difficult to continue to win and win and win and win. And he starts talking about these two teams, and he starts mentioning the San Antonio Spurs. And one of the things he says about the Spurs is this: they've been winning. They've had a winning record for the last 20 years. And not only have they had a winning record, but it's been different players. It's not always been the same team. He was talking about that is one of the most difficult things to do. And he says the reason why is because players get old, teams will rise up, new talent will come in, and it's easy to get defeated. And our prophet Isaiah shares the same sort of things. The prophet Isaiah, in Isaiah chapter 40, is speaking to a community that is in exile, that has just basically, they're thinking back about how awesome it was to win the Super Bowl at one day. And now they're in a place where they're in exile, they're in Babylon, and they're miserable. And so Isaiah in chapter 40, and you can read along with me, but don't read out loud because then you'll confuse me. In Isaiah chapter 40, starting with verse 21, it says this: do you not know? Have you not heard? Has it not been told to you from the beginning? Have you not understood since the earth was founded? He sits enthroned above the circle of the earth, and his people are like grasshoppers. He stretches out the heavens like a canopy and spreads them out like a tent to live in. He brings princes to naught and reduces rulers of this world to nothing. No sooner are they planted, no sooner are they sown, no sooner do they take root in the ground, then he blows on them and they wither. And a whirlwind sweeps them away like chaff. To whom will you compare me? Or who is my equal, says the Holy One. Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created all these? He who brings out the starry host one by one and calls forth each of them by name. Because of his great power and mighty strength, not one of them is missing. Why do you complain, Jacob? Why do you say, Israel, my way is hidden from the Lord, my cause is disregarded by my God? Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to weary, increases the power of the weak. Even though youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall, those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Now the prophet Isaiah was saying, haven't you known this? Haven't you not seen this? People rise up all the time. There's always going to be a champion. But not for long. Because championships aren't eternal. They don't last forever. As a matter of fact, whoever wins tonight will only be the champion for how long? 1 year. And then a new champion will rise up. And the prophet Isaiah is reminding Israel, you're getting all sad and you're getting all remorseful and depressed because you once had this kingdom that was mighty and powerful and now it's gone and you're in exile. But haven't you not known? Haven't you not heard? God has always been there. God has always been our strength. And that's something for us to remember. They're reminded that the most dominant will wither away. So to put our hope in our own accomplishments is futile. So if we can't put our hope in achieving our goals and our accomplishments, what then? Studies of adolescents show that young people who actively consider the meaning of life and their existence and then pursue that understanding of it, they tend to be more successful in their adulthood. So let me explain that. So, boys and girls, that as they're growing up, they really question things. They say, why am I here? What's my purpose in life? What is this all about? Those that ask that question and then actively pursue that question, so it's more than just asking the question, but actively pursue that, they tend to be more successful. Because those kind of people, those young people, they see beyond small accomplishments. And they can look farther beyond this accomplishment or this accomplishment or this accomplishment. Now I see a lot of scouts in here, lots of them with various badges. I had a roommate in college, he was an Eagle Scout. And I remember we were in the Corps Cadets at Texas A&M, and we were decorated there, and we would get these little ribbons and put on our uniforms, and he was telling me, it's funny that how he's always pursued these ribbons. And he even showed me a picture. He had one of those where he could have said, I think if there was a possibility to get every badge, he nearly had them all. And what was so interesting about him is that it didn't define him as a person. What he said defined him as a person, and this was a guy that was really helpful in growing me in my spirituality, my Christian strength, which he said he found his source of strength in God. He was an active Catholic. Now, I didn't know active Catholics could be that strong. No, I'm just kidding. But he was very passionate about his faith. And he said that, achieving those ribbons reminded him of the blessing God has put on him, but it's not all he is. And he shared that with me. So, I've been a youth minister. I've been a youth minister for 16 years. And I've been an associate pastor for the last 2 and then lead pastor here for the last 6 to 8 months. And I've really enjoyed my time. But one of the things I really love about working with young people, and especially as scouts, is to be able to have those conversations where we actively talk about, what is this life all about? Why am I here? What is the purpose of me? What is anything about? In Scouts, one of my favorite things to have been a part of is I've been a part of several God in Me courses. And I think it's a wonderful part of scouting. And if you don't know about God in Me is a way for scouts to explore their spirituality. to understand that they are more than just their achievements. They have eternal achievements to aim for as well. And I've always enjoyed being a part of Scouting Me. So what I think is what we learn here is that when God becomes our source of purpose, I want you to hear this. When God becomes our source of purpose, I think this is what the prophet Isaiah is saying. When God becomes our source of purpose, He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. And even though they grow tired and weary, their strength will be renewed and they will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. See, our children, our youth, they need to hear this message from us. That we know that they're more than just their accomplishments. We like to brag about our kids, do we not? If our kid wins, first place in the science fair, or, they hit a home run, or we love to brag about it. And we see these on Facebook feeds. And we see this all over the place. But we got to be able to communicate to our children, we love that you made this accomplishment. But you're more than just that. You're a child of God, and as a child of God, we are going to love you because you are loved by our God. And we need to be very vocal with that to our children. And I think the thing about it is that helping our kids in our spirituality hasn't been a big focus recently. We get real busy. Parents in here, tell me if it's not true. Are you not having a difficult time trying to manage everything your student is involved in? Seriously, whether it's sports or scouts or it's extracurriculars, and then to top on all the schoolwork, and then for all of us that live in the Collin County, North Texas area, we are bombarded daily by kids that are really impressive, are we not? And we want to give our kids a fighting chance, so we push them. And so what I really feel is important for us to do is to remember that in order for our kids to be most successful, we have to be able to help them see greater purpose in their life. We have to help them see beyond just the mere achievements of one goal after the next. I want us to turn real quick to 1 Corinthians chapter 9, and I'm going to be reading out of chapter 9, verses 16 through 23. Paul says this. So the Apostle Paul is speaking to the church in Corinth, and he says this to them. He says, "For when I preach the gospel, I cannot boast, since I'm compelled to preach. Woe to me if I don't preach the gospel. If I preach voluntarily, I have a reward. If not voluntarily, I'm simply discharging the truth committed to me. What then is my reward? Just this, that in preaching the gospel, I may offer it free of charge, and so make full use of my rights as a preacher of the gospel. Though I am free and belong to no one, I have made myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law I became like the one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law I became like one not having the law, so as to win those having the law. To the weak I became weak to win the weak. I become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in his blessings." So Paul, in the church of Corinth, he's speaking to them, and he says, and he speaks both of the necessity and his compulsion to proclaim the gospel. He feels as though he must let others know about the good news. Now, seriously, who here, upon hearing something, or seeing something, or experiencing something wonderful, would not want to share it with others, right? If think of anything in your life that has made you excited, or made you happy, or anything, who here would not want to share that with someone? And so Paul says, my desire to preach the gospel, to share the good news with everybody, it goes beyond just some sort of reward I'm going to get. It's because I'm so excited about who I am and what my life is about, that I have purpose. I have being in this. So Paul then defends his methods. So something that's interesting that happens here is Paul is defending himself for some reason. So partway in, halfway into this segment of scripture, Paul says, so this is why, I'm going to let you know, this is why I've become what I've become for the sake of the gospel. Now I'm going to ask some scout leaders again. Do you feel young? Yes, I'm good, yeah. You know, I had a conversation with someone, I don't remember who was here this morning, but I was having a discussion because today's my birthday. No happy birthday, thank you. But today's my birthday, and someone asked me, do I feel a year older? I said, well, no, I feel a day older, but no, it's like, you know, for me, you know, it's interesting because I can find my strength at times, and sometimes I realize how old I'm getting, or, you know, and I feel weak, or anything like that. But when I'm surrounded by youth, I find myself kind of stepping up a level. You know what I'm saying? So, Scout leaders, have you ever seen yourself do that? Maybe it's out at camp, or maybe it's you're stepping up your game, right? And you do it for what purpose? For the scouts there. And so Paul says the exact same thing. He says, you know what? I know who I am, but I'm going to become who I'm supposed to be so these people that I serve and I witness to, they hear the message that I'm supposed to be delivering. So I know some of you scout leaders, you might be 30 years old, you might be 40 years old, you might be 50 years old, but you will act 20 years old if it has to for the sake of these scouts. Am I not right? And so the truth comes to us as well as parents and as leaders, as grandparents, as adults, when it comes to our children and youth, we need to step up our game at times. We need to step up our game so our kids know that there's good things to life and we want to show you that. But how do we do that? So I moved up to the Dallas-Fort Worth area in 2007. And when I did, my mom was married to a gentleman who was about 82 years old at the time, and his name was Charlie. And Charlie passed away not too long ago, but Charlie, before we moved up here, was sharing, we were telling Charlie where we were moving to, so me and my wife were telling him, and we were telling him we're moving up to Allen, Texas. And Charlie goes, well, come in here, I want to tell you how you're going to get there. And so Charlie is going to give me directions to get from San Antonio, Texas to Allen, Texas, and he says, you're going to go up I-35, and as you go up I-35, you're going to exit Beckley. And you're going to take Beckley Avenue, and it's going to get you to Central Expressway, and you're going to take the Central Expressway up to Allen. Now, I've already been here several times. And I was like, I have never seen Beckley Avenue. And I'm telling you right now, I do know now. But I've never seen Beckley Avenue, nor would I understand why I would take Beckley Avenue to get there. So what was really interesting then is when I started to investigate this. So I looked at an old map. And Chris, do you have my PowerPoint by any chance? Can you go just to the picture of the map? Okay, so I looked at my old map. I looked at this old map, and when I discovered this old map, I know this one can be small, but what you were going to discover is before before Woodall Rogers Freeway was built, you would exit Beckley Avenue. And you would take Beckley Avenue to get over to Central to get up that route. And it was very interesting that he was telling me that. Now, when I did a little research on Beckley Avenue, Woodall Rogers did not open until 1983. And what I discovered about Charlie is Charlie had not been up in this area driving around since almost 1983 or longer. And so here's something I want to kind of share with us older people here. When it comes to communicating with our children, when it comes to communicating with our youth, we have to realize we might need to create some new maps. We might need to look at new maps because we might have remembered from the past of how things used to work for us and realize they don't work the same way anymore, right? You know, how many of you, when it was time to come home, all your parents did was turn on the front porch light and yell outside and you came running, right? But now that's not the way it works. What do we do now, parents? Get out the cell phone and text them, right? Because the maps have changed. The way we communicate with our children, the way we communicate with our youth, even the way we communicate with one another, all that's changed. And we have to realize, because if we don't realize that, we're using old maps. So our children, our youth, they need to hear this. So the roads have changed, but the destination hasn't. When roads change, we need new maps. And our children, our youth, even our neighbors need to hear the good news from us. And doing things the old way is like using an old map. So how do we create new maps? How do we form new maps? I know for many of us parents in here, some of us would like, how do I do this now? How do I do this in such a way? I don't want to just give in to technology or give in to all these things. I still want them to hear the heart of the message of God, but I don't want to have to give in to some of the things I feel I worry about. Well, I have a way. Chris, could you get to that slide for me for a second? So how do we form new maps? The first thing is we don't throw out the old ones. We don't, cartographers, they don't go and walk in and go, all right, all these maps are old, let's burn them and start all over. They don't do that. They start with the old ones. I was a youth minister for 16 years. And one thing I learned about youth ministry was don't start from scratch. This book right here is something I've had in my library for a long time. This book's copyright date is 1953. And this book was from the Methodist Church of St. Mary's Hills. And this book is called The Handbook of Methodist Youth Fellowship. And it is a suggestion on how to form a youth group and what the purpose of the youth group was. And this book stayed closed for almost the first 5, 6, 7, 8 years of me being a youth minister. And I was struggling in those times. I was struggling how to figure this out. How do I do this? And then I opened up this book. And what I realized is this book, yes, it was out of date, but it had some really good information. Some of the things that this book talked about, it talked about how youth, they need to be in contact with one another. They need to communicate their faith with one another. They need to know that they're not alone. And I'll tell you what, this has not changed, has it not? So we can't throw out the old maps. That's the first thing we need to do. Second thing we need to know. We need to get to know the lay of the land. So a cartographer, they're going to recreate a map and develop new maps. They will have those old maps, and they will actually experience the land for themselves. They will walk around and they'll realize, you know what? There is a better route. There is something new. And so I know a lot of you scout leaders here, you probably had to learn to do things you didn't think you'd have to, right? Especially to communicate to you. You had to become more internet savvy than you probably wanted to. You probably had to learn to use your phone more than just making a phone call. Because things have changed, and so you learn those new things. So we have to access how the environment has changed. We have to understand that. And so the same thing goes true for our church. If we're going to create new maps to show people who Jesus Christ is, tell people the gospel, we need to create we need to see how the environment has changed. The third thing we need to do, we need to explore the various routes and highlight the best. We need to explore the various routes and highlight the best. Part of this relationship that we develop with our students, with our youth, is understanding that, they experience new things. They have questions. And so we need to focus on redeveloping a core identity with one another. We need to be able to develop who we are in God and help them see, I have discovered for myself who God has made me to be. I want to help you discover that same thing. The fourth thing we need to do is we need to teach them how to use them. One of the most difficult things that's ever been done for me is somebody telling me where I'm going and just throw me a map. If I don't know these streets, if I don't know the landmarks, I'm going to be in unfamiliar territory and I might get lost. And we can't just assume that our children know how to get there. We need to be with them. We need to show them how to use this. We need to show them how to be involved in their faith. And that means us being active with them, making it purposeful. From age 15 to 21, my dad would just drop me off at church. And I never explored my faith with my father. Now, over time, that has changed, but it didn't then. And I think that I was missing that element quite a bit when I was growing up at home. And I hope that doesn't happen for you. We need to be active, engaged in this discovery of life with our children. And then 5, we need to always keep them up to date. You know, one of my least favorite things about the GPS, if you will, is having to make sure the maps are up to date. It takes forever, and it's work. But it doesn't mean it's got to be a lot of them. When we form partnerships with each other, we can find that it's much easier for us to discover new ways to reach people and how to be in ministry with one another. So here at Cornerstone, we're actively engaged right now with creating new paths. I'm going to be honest with you. This church has struggled for a while. And we know that. But God has placed us right here at this very spot with neighbors surrounding us. And we've learned that it's our mission to reach people around us. And so we are actively right now engaging ways, how are we going to reach the people around us? And how are we going to let people know that there's more to life than just one accomplishment, one goal after the next? That God has a way, He's going to lift us up, and we're going to soar on wings like eagles. Because Super Bowls, championships, accomplishments, goals are good. But they do not guarantee us a fulfilled life. Jesus said in the Gospel of John 10:10, that I have come that you might have life and have it to the fullest. Now, who wouldn't want that for our kids, right? To have life, but not only have life, but have it to the fullest. So I hope you engage with me in creating these new maps. That we can go out and we can make disciples of Jesus Christ, because we realize there's much more than badges, than our plaques we put on our walls, our diplomas. That God has this eternal goal for us, in which we'll soar on wings like eagles. Let's pray. Almighty God, I thank you for the presence of every person here. That you are God, and despite our wins, despite our losses, you are our strength. We thank you and we praise you. In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, we all pray. Amen.